As Israel prepares a response to Iran's last week's missile strike on Israel and intensifies its operations against Hezbollah, US President Joe Biden has urged Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to minimize harm to civilians in Lebanon.
Well, the leaders held a phone call that lasted for about 30-odd minutes.
And the work of your entire administration to support us. The Israeli people were deeply moved by the emotion that...
This even as US President Joe Biden reaffirmed Israel's right to defend itself. This call was the first in nearly 2 months, and it came amid mounting pressure from Washington for Israel to not strike Iran's oil or nuclear facilities.
But Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has meanwhile promised that an Israeli strike against Iran will be lethal, precise and surprising. Gallant was due to discuss Israel's response in Washington on Wednesday before the last-minute postponement of his visit by Netanyahu. After the Biden-Netanyahu call ended, Gallant issued a video statement describing Iran's October 1st missile attack as a failure. The Defense Minister of Israel warned whoever attacks Israel will be hurt and will pay a price.
Now you've seen the attacks. The Iranians attacked us a short while ago. These attacks were aggressive, but they failed because they weren't accurate attacks. Just as we have been doing until now in the war on all other fronts, whoever attacks us will be hurt and will pay a price. Our attack will be deadly, precise, and above all surprising. They will not understand what happened and how it happened. They will see the results.
As repeated threats reinforce fears that Israel and Hezbollah are on the verge of an all-out war, U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller has said that implementation of UNSC Resolution 1701 is a priority for the United States of America, especially at a time of heightened tensions. The UN and diplomatic officials have all turned to the 2006 resolution in a bid to end the conflict in West Asia.
To be clear, when we say that we want to see 1701 implemented, that includes all the provisions of 1701. It doesn't just mean the provisions that apply to Hezbollah. It means Israel withdrawing south of the blue line as well. We want to see every provision implemented.
United Nations officials have warned that Lebanon is staring at a catastrophic humanitarian crisis as the number of internally displaced people has hit 600,000. Hezbollah has said its fighters are locked in clashes with Israeli troops in southern Lebanon, using rocket-propelled weapons to repel Israeli attempts to breach the border.
And well, for more on this, we are now being joined by Adrian Calmel from New York. He is a fellow at Arabian Peninsula Institute, Terrorism and Middle Eastern scholar, and also author of forthcoming book on Hezbollah. Welcome to World DNA, Mr. Calmel. Now, Netanyahu and Biden, like we were talking about here, spoke for 30-odd minutes. The discussion majorly focused on Israel's attack on Iran. The White House says that the talks were direct and productive. How do you read that statement coming out of the White House? Do you think that Israel and U.S. has perhaps they've reached a common ground when it comes to attacking Iran?
Thank you for having me on the show, Raisha. Great question. I don't think they have reached a consensus, only because Israel needs to respond, and they need to respond forcefully. The last time the Islamic Republic launched this type of salvo, the only response from Israel was they took out an S-300 air defense system that was protecting Natanz nuclear facility. So the systems that were supposed to be defending that nuclear facility were destroyed before they even realized the Israelis had taken them out. So I thought that was a very clear message. I think Israel has a opportunity here where the war has shifted, where they were on the defensive on multiple fronts, probably for 7-8 months, trying to hold off Hezbollah. Now they have an opportunity here, and they see it. Gallant is saying it. They have to, one, the oil facilities and petrochemical facilities, that would be a primary target for the Israelis, because one way to cripple the Islamic Republic and their proxies is to cripple that oil supply that they gain, that generates revenue that they can pay off their proxies. And then there's the nuclear facilities as well. So here we are. Hezbollah is severely weakened. We've seen that. So the Islamic Republic is not in a very good place right now.
Mr. Calamel, shortly after that conversation between the two leaders, the defense minister of Israel, he said that Israel's attack against Iran would be deadly, precise, and above all, it's going to be surprising. We've seen Israel resort to certain asymmetrical tactics in the past, of course, nothing that they admitted to, but that was extremely deadly and it was extremely surprising. Do you reckon that Israel would perhaps resort to something similar like the pager blasts we saw earlier? And there have also been reports that someone was suggesting that the earlier president of the earlier leader in Iran was also killed due to that, which caused the helicopter crash. So there have been a lot of reports. Would you connect these dots and perhaps hint or think that that's the kind of attack that Israel is now planning for?
It's hard to say what Israel is planning for. I can say that they have that capacity. They've proven that during this war with the pager incident, and even before the war, they were basically running circles around the IRGC internal security apparatus with sabotage attempts and successful ones in Natanz, assassinations of nuclear scientists, etc. It's really difficult to say what they will do. I think it's going to be one, I want to stress the importance. It's going to be one to minimize civilian casualties. The Israelis understand that the Iranian people have been oppressed by this regime, and that's very important to understand. So I think it comes back to really, if you look at the greatest threat, the existential threat, the way the Islamic Republic has been able to threaten Israel and its livelihood is one through Hezbollah, and then the looming nuclear threat. Now, if they can wipe out both those threats in a relatively short period of time, I think we've seen what's happened with Hezbollah. They have been severely degraded from it wasn't a decapitation strike. They went from the bottom up and they cleared the entire structure.
Mr. Calamel, talking about the phone conversation between Biden and Bibi, yet again, the U.S. president asserted Washington's ironclad support for Tel Aviv, and U.S. has also stepped up troop presence in the region. But all this while, Biden has also been urging for restraint in West Asia in a bid to avoid an all-out war. The paramount question now is that for how long will U.S. continue supporting Israel?
Well, I think we also have to remember that we're coming up to an election here. So we don't know which way this election is going to swing. It could go either way. If it goes a Harris-Walz way, I could see that support diminishing even further. If it goes to Trump and Vance, I would see that support become more ironclad there. So that's kind of the way I see the relationship right now. The U.S. has been very contradictory in their message. They've given the Islamic Republic, both Biden and Obama gave them a pathway to a nuclear weapon and said that they would use the military option if it looked like they were coming to that point. But now Biden's backpedaling on that, and the military option seems to be off the table when it comes to nuclear programs. So there's serious friction. I know the U.S. is upset about not being told about certain operations, but I can't blame the Israelis because the amount of leaks that are coming out of the administration in Washington, D.C. puts these type of operations at risk.
All right, Mr. Adrian Calamel, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Thank you so much. Have a nice evening.
You too.